Right, so you'd probably have to have been living under a rock at this point to not be aware of the bonfire Suella Braverman is trying to light under the planned protest marches across the country that will be happening on Armistice Day this coming Saturday. The disinformation, the hate speech, the fearmongering that she, as Home Secretary, no less, is stoking up, and which our spineless jellyfish of a Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, will not condemn. Her comments will, I think, amongst right-thinking, compassionate, empathetic people, horrified by what they are witnessing happening in Gaza, encourage even greater turnout amongst them than we've seen so far. And crowds in London have been amongst the biggest seen in decades in the capital. The most surefire way to get the collective British back up is to tell them not to do something for an unacceptable reason. My fear is, though, that as a result of greater numbers and the high profile of this march and the day it is marking, attacks on protesters by the far right that Braverman is encouraging have become all the more likely now. Right, so I did a video the other day going over the meaning of armistice, a word that basically means a ceasefire, arms stoppage being the literal translation from the Latin. For this coming weekend, on both Armistice Day on Saturday and Remembrance Sunday on, of course, Sunday, we'll still see people sporting poppies, a symbol of not only remembrance but also peace, still refusing to call for a ceasefire in Israel and Gaza. Oh, by the way, do you happen to know what the national flower of Palestine is? Yeah, the poppy. So we're going to see an awful lot of hypocrites this weekend wearing them, aren't we? But Suella Braverman, she's been driving some hateful rhetoric. Not that that is anything new. She's less of a Home Secretary and more the Minister for starting culture wars. Still referring to this weekend's planned events as a hate march. She's not a peace activist. She doesn't believe in putting fires out and promoting peace. She's lighting the damn fires. She's a bloody arsonist. She's been particularly foul regarding the protest going near to and desecrating the cenotaph, the national monument to all of those who fought and died for the freedoms we all enjoy, notwithstanding the fact Braverman would no doubt strip us of all of those freedoms in a heartbeat if we gave her half a chance to do so. Over and over again, she's referred to those pro-Palestine demonstrations as hate marches, and as we all know, if you repeat something often enough, people, some at least, will believe it. Others will just take it as an opportunity to act on their own racist natures. Braverman kept saying this even after the Met Police themselves briefed her that the demonstration on Saturday, which has been planned for weeks, all the necessary liaising with the police that is always done ahead of these large events has taken place. It is still legal to protest that. Braverman might wish it otherwise, but after the Met Police had told Braverman, though, that the demonstration on Saturday was going nowhere near Whitehall, let alone the cenotaph, because it's going from Marble Arch to the US Embassy. Any desecration of the cenotaph would be abhorrent and condemnable, and we'd all join in that condemnation of that, but it won't be legitimate Palestine protesters doing it. Nevertheless, Braverman's hate speech, the media who keep platforming it, have all led to a situation now where the risk of violence has grown to the point the Met Police are now asking people to postpone their march. They won't. It's too long in the planning. You, the police, are supposed to be there to ensure it is safe and conducted without incidents of violence, so you could always try telling your boss to shut her hole, perhaps. You know from past marches the number of criminal behaviours has been minimal, so who is it you really need to be looking out for? Because it isn't the demonstrators themselves on the whole, but those wishing to have a clash with them. They will have been emboldened by the person literally in charge of you, so why are you taking orders from such an irresponsible Home Secretary? She has called it a hate march over and over again. She has created this idea in the minds of the patriots, those who prove the word really is the last refuge of the scoundrel, though, as something that it is their job to oppose. And they will. And too often we see that done as a show of violence. We've seen peaceful protests for weeks. If this one doesn't go the same way, then Braverman will have driven that. She will have helped to stoke the flames, the arsonist that she is. She will have emboldened those with violent intent that this must be resisted. If the protesters seek to defend themselves from attack or retaliate, then they will be seen, and no doubt the right-wing hate rags will carry this narrative too, that Braverman was right all along. And we can't have that, because she's not right. And of course we have to remember that Braverman had no problem with marches for Ukraine. And the only difference between Ukraine and Gaza right now is geography, is where in the world they are, and the religion and the skin colour of the people who live there. And people will say, well, Braverman can't be racist because she's brown-skinned, and if anything, I'd say that's a get-out-of-jail-free card she doesn't deserve to be credited with. A former race advisor to Boris Johnson called Samuel Kasumu, a black-skinned man, by just for reference, has said of Braverman that she has big problems with Muslims. She is Islamophobic, and she shouldn't be Home Secretary. Her views on what is a good and decent march by good and decent people, and what isn't, amounts to who they are protesting for. And I'd like to think those who are well informed enough will have protested for both, because if you back Ukraine and not Gaza equally, well, you've got issues, and you need to have a look at yourself and have a little bit of time for self-reflection and work on that. But so much will also have come from people just not being well informed. And for that, it's our media who are at fault for not adequately doing so and not framing both cases in the same light. Ultimately, though, despite Braverman, despite the risks she is causing to increase, despite the Met Police's warnings, the march on Saturday will go ahead. We will march, very much trending on social media today as people announce they will be joining the march in spite of Braverman, because ultimately we have to remember why we're protesting in the first place and not make this all about her and her vileness. Stop the War are joining the march, Palestine Solidarity Campaign, the Peace and Justice Project, and the latest additions to publicly announce their intention to join the march at time of writing are the Trade Union General Secretaries of the Fire Brigade Union Matt Rack, the RMT's Mick Lynch, and the NEU's Daniel Kebede, calling for a ceasefire, as all three are, with Mick Lynch speaking at the event as well. Israel has bombed hospitals, mosques, churches, ambulances, civilian buildings, border crossing, convoys of civilians, so that more than 10,000 people in Gaza are dead. How many of them were Hamas? They won't tell us, because then that would expose the number of civilian casualties they've decided are acceptable. Among the dead, of course, though, are thousands of children. 40% of the population of Gaza under the age of 14. Journalists reporting on what is happening have been killed. UN employees have been killed, as have countless medical staff. Israel have blocked humanitarian aid. They cut off power and water and food and medicines, and we're supposed to pretend that everyone choosing to march this weekend on Armistice Day, the most appropriate day for a ceasefire march in our calendar, is somebody marching with hate in their hearts. The only person consumed with hate over this is Suella Braverman. She is so dangerous, so right-wing in her beliefs. She has absolutely no business being in a position of power or responsibility in this country. And as well as marching for a ceasefire, for peace, for Palestine this weekend, marching to give her a two-fingered salute seems entirely appropriate as well. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Do also have your say on this video in the comments below and be part of the conversation. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation where Jeremy Corbyn recently went after Braverman for vile rhetoric as well, not pulling any punches on his part either. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.